Well, when I first met Rollin, I was a would-be artist. I had always wanted to be an artist, but I had a couple of jobs and a couple of small children. So I knew enough about art to know that his work was absolutely brilliant. And I wanted to own some, but at the time, this was not a possibility. My husband and I were trying to build a new house, and so I, knowing Rollin, who was extremely brilliant yet shy, quiet, considerate, sense of humor, and he was a gentleman. So I was very happy just to know him. And there was a time when we both embarrassed each other. And that was because Rollin and Glenna were friends with a lot of us who lived in the area. And so we used to exchange dinners and host a party for each one of us. And my husband and I were building a house, and it was almost finished. And I did a lot of the painting inside the walls and the ceiling, and we did quite a bit of work so we could save some money. And so when we moved in, it was our turn to give the dinner. And I was very pleased that it was done and pleased to share it with all our friends. And Rollin looked around and he said, "You know, Patti, I'm just amazed at your painting." And I said, "Oh, thank you so much for encouraging me." And he said, "Oh, no, I meant the walls and the ceiling." And I laughed, and he laughed, and then everybody else laughed because I obviously had taken it the wrong way. I think he was probably the kindest, most generous man. Not only did he donate his paintings for various nonprofit organizations, auctions, and I was just so thrilled to know and be able to see so many of the things he did. And I told him that I really admired his work, and is there any way I can see more of it? Is there any place that your paintings are hung? And he said, "Well, my studio's downtown just 2 blocks from where you work, and so walk down sometime, I'm always there." So I walked on my lunch hour, and I walked into his studio, and there was this watercolor of the ocean that just took my breath away. It was so good and fresh and perfect. And so I had looked at everything, and then I said, "I really want this one, but I'm going to have to save up for it." And he said, "If you really want it, why don't you take it home, and then you just pay me whatever you think you can afford per month until it's paid for." And I was just thrilled. So I happily took it home and paid for it faithfully every month. And when it was done, I bought another one. And when that was paid for, I bought another and another. And I never stopped collecting because so many of his works were so thrilling to me. And of course, it was nice that my husband liked them too. Oh, it was just a few years after I met him, so that's over 50 years ago. And I have his paintings all over the house, and it's just like there's a friend there talking to me. And I want to tell you a story that a woman I know told me once, and she said, I know you will appreciate that I will tell you this because I wouldn't tell everybody. So she said, I was in Pacific Grove walking along the beach, and I saw this man with a tattered straw hat and scruffy jeans sitting in the sand with an easel and painting a watercolor. And she said, I walked up and looked at what he was doing, and I said, say, that's pretty good. And he said, thank you. And then she watched some more, and she said, you know, you are really good. Have you ever thought of selling your work? And he said, the possibility did occur to me. And she said, I really think you should. What's your name? And he said, Roland Pickford. Well, it's hard to say which one is my favorite because they're all my favorite. I loved his seascapes and the cormorant, which is in this show, Cormorants, which was lovely. You could almost hear the birds and smell the sea air. He just got every nuance right. And the styles, I have two oil paintings, which are absolutely wonderful, both in my living room. And they are both musicians because he used to have permission to go and watch the rehearsals for the Philharmonic. And so I have one which is not necessarily realistic, but large and mostly strings. And he said, I did that while listening to Beethoven. And it has the big bass and cellos, and you can almost hear the music. It's a lovely thing. I bought that. That was the first oil I had bought. And then the second one was very dark, and it was a trio. The players are all no longer with us, but the music is still there. Very, very different from the bright and orange-colored Beethoven oil. And then he had many watercolors. Most of mine are watercolors. There are some drawings that are just lovely and just as precise and brilliant as anything else. And then when he was doing acrylics, he was abstract. He just had splashes of color. And they were extremely bright and mostly happy. And everything he did was just right as far as I was concerned, and a lot of other people that are in this exhibition. He left us an appreciation not only of the valley, he did some wonderful things there, but an appreciation of the Pacific Ocean, because so many times he and Glenna would go over there, they'd rent a house, and he would paint watercolors of the ocean. And I think for this area in the Central Valley, his appreciation of the colors of the valley in all seasons. The green is all right, that's fine, and the water next to the green and its reflections, but he also did watercolors of the hills in the summer, and they were ochre, and they were just as pleasant winter scenes as his green watercolors were here. And I think it gives us an impression of the beauty of this valley, which I think no one could appreciate the way Roland is, and is so important to him that everyone see all of the quality that is here all around us. And so I always, whenever I go someplace, I will always look at the hills and the farms. And I've never been a farmer, but I have an appreciation of the pattern that everything is made all around this area. I think every person who knew Rollin without the paintings adored him anyway, because he was so gentle and so nice and just a delight to be with.